This is a presentation that we put together that is featuring all of the different community gardens. Okay, so this is the first thing so that everyone understands we've got two different types of gardens. The demonstration gardens are the first thing that we're going to be talking about, and these are ones that we really have control over the processes, where we're actually planning and planting and tending and harvesting. We're doing all the work there. And we have 7 demonstration gardens that are across the metro area. The next type of garden we have is called a partnership garden. And this is where we're actually working with another organization to, we're determining what they would like for us to do. So it's what we can do to meet their needs. And we have 9 of those. So the way it's going to go is we have a slide for each garden. And I was checking to see if all the coordinators were here. And almost all of them are here. So let's get started.
The Blue Springs Community Garden has been here about, I think this will be our 11th year, and I've been the chair of it from the beginning. We have kind of a different garden, so let me explain it to you. Most of the community gardens are vegetable gardens, and we discovered that out here in Blue Springs, we have a lot of people that have moved in from farther out in the country, and they didn't need our help with vegetables. They were teaching us things. We also had a real problem getting rid of produce. We have a couple food banks here, but they close the week before and the week after a holiday, and there's several in the summer, and we would have produce going to waste. So we got really discouraged with that, and we met together and decided that we would do some different kinds of gardenings to show all kinds of gardenings to our community. So we have 5 beds. We have a vegetable bed where we grow unusual vegetables. We put a sign up when they're ripe and say, hey, help yourself, try these if you want to. We have a rose bed that has 8 or 9 roses in it that are all different kinds and different colors. We have a Missouri native bed. We have another native bed that's got perennials intermixed so people can see how to put those into their landscaping. And we have a certified monarch bed. The one thing that I did about 2 years ago that's worked out really wonderful is I bought those plastic things they put in front of yards that you put flyers in. One of our volunteers mounted them on some steel posts, and there is one in each bed. And we keep them filled with information about what's going on in that bed. The rose bed has the type of roses, you know, how they're bred, what their zone is. The certified monarch bed has a flyer from Missouri Conservation on how to start a monarch bed. Those have worked out great. The vegetable bed, we put recipes in there. So, you know, in the spring, we'll put different kinds of lettuce recipes or salads or different kinds of things. What we do is we meet on this second and fourth Saturdays of the month. And there isn't a lot of labor really involved in our vegetable bed, in any of our beds, except for weeding and trimming. But we do meet on the second and fourth Saturday as a group. And I usually bring breakfast, muffins or something like that. And then anybody who's working in the gardens, any of the other gardens, can join in and have breakfast with us. And we sit and talk and get caught up and talk about what's going on in the gardening world and what we do in our gardens. We have a core group of about 5 of us that have been together since the beginning. Patty Hickman was one of the first ones. Scott and Mary Moore, Patricia Magger. We are really looking for some people to just come and pitch in and help. We really have a great time. It's a really fun group. We're very close. We've all become good friends. And we really enjoy getting in the garden and working when we can and meeting on the second and fourth Saturday mornings. Usually when in the beginning in the spring, it's at 9 o'clock, but once the weather gets warm, we meet at 8 for about an hour, have breakfast together and coffee, and work in the garden for 20 or 30 minutes, and then spend the rest of the time just visiting and helping anybody else who might be in the garden that needs help. So if you guys have any questions, you can just email me. Thanks.
For those who are not familiar with the Harvester's demonstration garden, it is a true demonstration garden. Our goal is to demonstrate both to staff and to the agencies and individuals who come through Harvesters that no matter how much property they have, they can grow something, whether it's for themselves or to put into the food stream for their various pantries and organizations. So we have quite a few very wonky containers. We have 4 12 by 15 beds and 8 4 by 8 beds. So large, medium, and quite small. one of the best things I think about our garden, which we installed in the fall of 2005 and planted for the first time in 2006, is that it is a fabulous collaboration between Kansas City Community Gardens, from whom we join, and we get all of our plant matter and seeds from them, as well as harvesters. They provide watering when needed. We do have, every Saturday that we work, there's usually some folks who have come to Harvesters to volunteer, and they sign up specifically to join us in the garden. So it's bona fide education and community outreach, which is great fun. We work on Saturday mornings. Last year we were fallow for the first time in our history. We did a cover crop of red clover, and then we did what's called lasagna gardening, or lasagna, I don't know what it is, but anyway, we put layers of straw and paper and other things to kind of keep everything weed free until we come in this spring. And I think right now our decision is that we are probably going to come in only for summer crops and then the fall cool crops. We're not quite sure when we're going to be able to get in. We are very excited that a Eagle Scout project is going to put in drip irrigation for us. We're not quite sure what the timing is going to be on the drip irrigation, and we don't want to get too far down the road. So probably in May, we will go in, bring the garden up to snuff, and then plant our warm season crops and maybe a little bit of lettuce if we think we can sneak it in. Our goal is really to develop a team of folks who can come regularly, because there's really quite a bit of education, and I should say right out of the chute that the real brains behind the operation is a master gardener named Mary McClure. She really founded the garden, although I was there early on as well. But she's there every Saturday, and so we want people who can get to know the layout, get to know the process. 100% of what we grow is either used in the nutrition education program or goes directly to the shopping floor. So it goes directly to the agencies who participate in Harvesters. So that's really gratifying as well. We probably have between 1,000 and 2,000 pounds when we have a good year, and it kind of depends on how many potatoes and squash we plant. Sarah asked about deer. We do have a fence that you can see in this photo. In some areas, I want to say we have like a rabbity kind of smaller grid fence towards the bottom, but above the fence that you can see in this photo, we do have wire. And we have hung soap on it. We have hung Mylar ribbon. Because we're very close to a very rural area there and a stream, there are deer. Our goal is to discourage them, because once they get in, they can stay as long as they want. So it's been a great process. We're in, I guess, season 15 now, if you don't count last year laying fallow. We would welcome the newbies who want to come out and take a look at us and see if it works for them. But we have a crew that comes pretty regularly, and our goal is to really create a sense of community and teamwork as we work the garden throughout the summer and then into the fall.
But what kind of fruit do you grow there?
You know, we work with Kansas City Community Gardens so that they can help us know, of course, what grows well. But really, we try to grow what will be successful on the shopping floor. So tomatoes, greens, okra, cucumber, snap peas, all kinds of green beans or yellow beans. We do lettuce. The containers, we have tried to do really intensive and interesting stuff, like, a salsa garden. So we would do gypsy peppers and Roma tomatoes and onion. So kind of showing people that you can do some interesting stuff. But we don't do a lot of exotic stuff, because we want people who might be a little bit intimidated by gardening to come in and say, I can do that. And those are foods I want to eat. So we don't do much that's exotic or weird. It's usually pretty basic stuff that we think either the clients for Harvesters or the clients for Harvesters, or just the average person coming through, because again, in a world that is not COVID, there are thousands of people who tour Harvesters every year, and they include the garden on their tour. So we're always happy to get that kind of exposure, both for the garden itself and the master gardeners.
Did you say that you grow strawberries at all?
I should mention, we do some edible landscaping towards the front of the volunteer entrance. We have a forever 4x8 bed of strawberries. We had some strawberries and an apple tree in one of our large containers. I think the apple tree died. So we will plant strawberries along with other things. And we also have one of our 4x8 beds is all in asparagus. So those are our two perennial crops.
Ivanhoe has finished its 10th year, and in this year, which will be our 11th, we're going to be doing a major redesign of the garden system here. Originally, this started out as a demonstration garden with the Ivanhoe Neighborhood Council. I think realistically, we're going to have to change the definition of it to a partner garden, where we're partnering not only with the Ivanhoe Neighborhood Council, but also with the Linwood Avenue Ministries Project, which is a private organization located a few blocks away. This garden, as it was originally constructed, was primarily designed to provide food and provide an opportunity for neighbors in that area to grow food. As it stands right now, there are so many gardeners. The Ivanhoe people have done a marvelous job of spreading out the idea of vegetable gardening throughout the neighborhood. And there are a great many people growing food now for their farmers market. They have their own farmers market on Saturday. And so their plan and their desire is to redesign this garden to have it become primarily a teaching area, just where we bring in new people to learn how to garden, and they can spread out into other areas as well. Ivanhoe is providing the funding for the redesign of the garden. We probably will not be doing very much actual gardening in that area this year, because we know that the reshaping of the garden, which will involve regrading a good portion of it, is probably not going to get started until late spring. So there may not be much of anything actually produced in these gardens through a good portion of the summertime, but it will become, there's also an intent to do a great deal of beautifying of this garden as well, so that it will become somewhat of a drawing place. This area that you're seeing here is right next to the Ivanhoe Neighborhood Center, and they want to draw people in, see it, show it as a show place, show them how they can do within their own areas. And we will be looking for people who can help us with the redesign of this garden, so that we can make it into a much more of a show place and design it as a teaching space. So we probably will have fewer beds. The pollinator garden, I think, will probably stay about where it is, and the fruit tree orchards won't get moved. The fruit tree orchards right now are peach trees, pear trees, and apple trees, and it's actually split on two sides of the woodland street into two spaces. Again, we're working with Giving Grove people to maintain that garden and get it perked up. We've done quite well with those. For those of you who are interested, peach trees in particularly have been huge bearers and produced lots and lots of peaches through the area. Actually, last year, as little time as we as master gardeners had in that garden, the garden was almost completely kept up by the neighborhood gardeners, who did everything from the planting to maintaining the garden and getting all the stuff planted and all the harvesting done. We came along and helped later on in the year as we were able to get back in there again. But I think that's what encouraged them to know that they could handle managing that garden themselves, and now they want to have us help them restructure it so that they can go on with it in the future.
The Kansas City Community Gardens, a little history. I have been involved with it for approximately 10 years. From what I've been told by the old timers, master gardeners were one of the first people to have a garden in this garden when it moved from the old baseball stadium. And this was nothing more than a fill-in field. We've been here sometime in one of the places for many, many years. We originally started out to try and experiment to see what unusual or what varieties of a particular crop we could produce and what was the better producer. And we found that over a period of time, it really cut down the volunteer hours, plus it cut down a lot of the things going on. If you plant sweet potatoes, you have a period of time to plant, you have a little bit of weeding, and then you dig, and the rest of the time, everybody can stand and look at it. So what we did is change our focus to try and come up with a proposal to feed a family of 4 for a recommended yearly supply of vegetables. Our plot is, we actually have 2 plots. It's 25 by 40 or 1,000 square feet. We divide the plot into simulated raised beds. We cut a channel every 45 or 50 inches so that we can walk. We have a few rules, such things as you never walk in the garden. You do not use herbicides, pesticides, or anything unless it's a matter of losing everything or what, but we always try to organic. The people that we have working with us, there's 8 of us, are what you would call maybe a little quirky gardeners. We have one person who is a tremendous butterfly lady. She has her own little corner where she grows plants for black swallowtails. We have a couple ladies that I like to call them our bug ladies. They know bugs, they know how to get rid of them, they know how to catch them. Very seldom will they ever use any pesticides on those bugs. We also will identify a couple of quirky little plants. We've planted peanuts, we've grown celery, we've grown flowering hibiscus. This year, I've got a few epizotes started that we're gonna see if we can do anything with that. We have averaged between 1,000 and 1,200 pounds of food a year. One of the things we found is that there's a food bank down on 63rd and approximately state line by the name of Jewish Family Services. They will take any and all produce that we deliver. And this year we're intending to set up a couple of visits with them. They're gonna bring some of their customers out to show where the food comes, maybe encourage them, maybe get them interested in growing their own food. We work every Tuesday and Friday mornings, except for the holidays, if it's the 4th of July or a Labor Day. We also try to work around, there are 5 or 6 Jewish holidays that, since we can't harvest to take food, we don't harvest that much then. We have kind of an interesting philosophy. Gardening is supposed to be fun. When it ceases to be fun, we sit down and look at it and watch it. If that doesn't work and it doesn't get to be fun, we all go home. And it's, we call it a community effort. It's one of the things that when you start working there, everybody knows you. As you can see in the picture, there's garden plots going on toward the west. There's ones to the north. If you don't show up, next time they see you, they're gonna ask, are you okay? Is everything all right? And I have had them check up on me a time or two just to make sure I'm doing all right and not sick somewhere. It really is a community area. Every September, they will have a covered dish dinner. The community garden management will buy barbecue. They have a big smoker they bring out and they barbecue the beef. And then everybody brings covered dish and we all get together. And it's an interesting approach.
Platte County Community Garden is on 45 Highway and at the National Golf Course. And it's a combination of the Y in Parkville and Platte County Extension and the National Golf Course. And it's a 33 plot garden. Each plot is 10 by 20. And the master gardeners have 3 plots. One is a veggie garden, and that we change the theme each year. And we donate all the produce to St. Therese Pantry. And then one is actually 2 are pollinator plot. Our pollinator plot grew into the next plot because nobody was there. The Y, who is the one who appoint all the plots, they said we could just keep that as 2 plots. And then we have 1 plot that's new that is going to be a strawberry plot. And then we have along one whole side, well, half of one side are 2 peach trees, 3 apple trees, blackberries, and blueberries. We have a pretty good diversity of things that we handle. And our garden is open 7 days a week. And our master gardeners go there on the day and time that is good for them. We don't have any set days that everybody goes. We do have a get together, usually February or March, and then at the end of the year to discuss in the early part what we're going to do for the year, and the late part, how did everything go. With COVID, I didn't do it, but we did plant and work in the garden during COVID, and so we were able to take food to the pantry. There's a chain of emails that when you go to the garden, you email everybody that works at the garden that day, and you say what you did. And then the next day, that person knows what you did and what you didn't get done. And then they take up where you left off, and then they email that day, and so on and so forth. And there's water at the garden, and also compost and mulch. We have everything that we need, and it works pretty well.
Hi, Swope is probably the biggest garden I think we have. As it says here, it's about 6,000 square feet. It was started in 2009, and so it is about 11, 12 years old. It's really, its main purpose is to show visitors and other people that come around the community center what you can grow in a very hot, full sun area. There are, gosh, I don't even know how many plants anymore, but it started out as being an all-American selection and plant garden. They tried to put all plants that were, like I said, all-American selection and plants of merit, so that people could see how those type of plants grew in our area. Recently, we've added on and started to put more natives. We're trying to show how natives can blend into a normal environment, a normal yard environment. Off on the side, we have a monarch station. It was started in 2012, and Sarah usually manages that along with whoever else happens to be around at that time. We have lots of plants, lots of bushes, and a few annuals. Our goal lately has been to cut down on the annuals. We're trying to cut down on the maintenance, and especially cut down on the watering. We also have added to the entry of the garden a display sign that has our Swope spotlight plant, where we're trying to use that as an outreach, where we sit there and spotlight one of the plants in the garden. I think this year we want to try and put a stake or something by the plant we're spotlighting, so that people can, if they read it, they can actually go through and find the plant that we're trying to spotlight. We have quite a few visitors that roam through. This year's been tough because the community center was closed, and then it was sort of open, and then it was sort of open a little bit more, and then it was closed. And just like everybody else, we've had a variety of people that sometimes comes through, but we usually get a pretty good group of people to come visit us. They ask questions and we try and provide answers. We have three of us that sort of co-chair this. And I think you're on. Did you want to add anything?
You know, it's a fantastic garden. It's a beautiful show. I think a lot of the shrubs are really well established. We're trying to incorporate more native plants, and a lot of the work is in trying to tame some of the things that are growing that aren't supposed to be growing. And so there's a little bit of order involved in that aspect of it. We've got some purple poppy mallow that would take over if we let it go, but but it's a beautiful garden. I think it's appreciated by the people in the community, and it's fun to work in.
Yeah,
I would just like to add, this is Debbie. My first year I worked at that garden, and I've been just a few times over the years, but every time I have been in that garden working, somebody going into the community center has stopped to say thank you. Thank you for doing this. They really appreciate it.
This is the Lee Summit Community Garden, and Marilyn is responsible for 2 10-by-10 plots. They grow a lot of vegetables. She's very committed to this, and I think they donated about, almost 650 pounds of vegetables this past year. She also has a pollinator plot back here too as well that they use. Probably one of the key things here is she interfaces a great deal with the other gardeners in answering their questions, because I think there's like 48 garden plots here. And she would certainly welcome some additional volunteers. They work Tuesday and Saturday mornings. Now we're going to get into the partnership gardens.
18B is a really great oasis in the middle of the city. We've seen just lots of people walking by and just enjoying the fruits and vegetables, the flowers. Many people come down there just to have lunch on one of the little patios that is at the corner of like 17th and Broadway. There's a little picnic table. So you've seen lots of people come down there and just enjoy lunch. And occasionally you'll see some people picking flowers just to enjoy. So, but I will be the coordinator, and so always looking for additional people to join our team. 18B is mostly vegetables that go to harvesters, but we do grow flowers, zinnias, and black-eyed Susans and other pollinator plants to just kind of brighten up the sea of green with, all the green vegetables and plants and stuff like that.
So the conservation area was named after the Burr Oak Creek, which is a tributary to the Little Blue River, because it was all lined in the Burr Oak timber along its path. So I thought that was really, really cool for them to do that. Burr Oaks has 9 native garden beds with approximately about 150 to 200 native plants. We are only basically responsible for the one in the picture, that south side garden right there. I don't know the dimensions of it. And then when we have more people or we have extra time, then they ask us we go around to some of the other gardens to help. Our purpose for the garden at Burr Oaks is to encourage the use of native plants for the home landscape by showing examples of the native plants and how they can grow them at home, and also to act as an educational tool for the benefits and use of the native plants for the attraction of pollinators, because we need those pollinators so bad. And the native plants are wonderful for bringing them into any kind of garden you have, whether vegetables or fruits, to help pollinate and also get rid of some of the other bugs, the nasties. What we do. So if you can see in that picture, there's a path, there's a little rock path. We help maintain that hardscaping. We also help plant as needed, and we do a lot of weeding and deadheading. As you can see, those things get kind of wild and woolly in there. Our work days are once a month from March to October. Usually they're on Saturdays. We also kind of unique in the fact that we do what we call work and learn days. We have 3 work and learn days throughout the year where we do 1 hour of volunteer work, and then we do 1 hour of education. So in April, it would be an intro to natives. In June, it's plant this, not that. And in August, it's natives for the fall color. And they're very informative. And Stephanie Kemp, who's the naturalist there, she's the one who teaches those. And really learn a lot about the natives from that. One of the things we also do is, if you're on our, the Burr Oak email nest that I have, prior to each of we're going to try this new this year, prior to each of the work days, we'll be sending information on some of the plants to be expected that we'll see there, so that you can be educated and kind of prepare yourself and, on what you're going to be looking for, as well as when we get there, Stephanie will also kind of give us a refresher, because we are opening up, and we encourage the people who are visiting this conservation area to come in and ask us questions about this. So we kind of want to educate ourselves as well as educate the public about it. What to expect when you get there. All the tools are provided. They're sanitized before and after each use. You're welcome to bring your own tools, but if you don't have them, don't worry about it. Everything is there for you. All you need to do is bring a hat and sunscreen and bug spray, but please spray away from the garden and not at the garden for obvious reasons. We also, I think at this point, the water fountains are closed down. So we will be providing a big cooler of water for you, but bring your reusable cups. I think that's about it.
Harry Truman National Historic Site.
We are a partnership garden with the National Park Service. And our garden actually includes quite a bit of space. We have not just the Truman home, but also Bess's brother George and Frank's houses are behind it. And across the street and over one is the Nolan house where Harry Truman's family lived, I guess an uncle. And we work on all of those properties. This project has been around since 2009. Janelle Egger spent most of that time leading it and did a great job. We continue to work on the schedule that she set up, which is the second Wednesday morning of each month, with possibly 2 exceptions. The National Park Service has to have employees on site to supervise us because it is part of their property. So we work under their supervision. The project is different. We try to provide beauty. We don't grow any vegetables or things like that and teach people how to garden there. What we're doing is helping to preserve history. We do have opportunities for outreach in that there's a pretty steady stream of visitors and people who live in the area who want to know what we're doing and why we're doing it that way. One of their questions is always, I'm glad to see you working there. Why did you let it get so bad? And we try to explain to them, we work with the National Park Service's guidelines. And they went through and analyzed how everything was from 1953 to 1972 on the property, and they want to keep this property frozen in that time frame. Harry Truman didn't really believe in spending a lot of money on lawn care. So there's a percentage of weeds that need to be maintained in that lawn to keep it within those guidelines. It also, the landscaping was much different. The house itself was built in the 1800s. The landscape style was different. We maintain it there. While in the last year or so, they have actually let us add 1 or 2 plants that had died and replace them in kind, and also some bulbs that were in Mrs. Truman's garden. We don't get to change things to the newer, less attractive to bugs or whatever problem they might have plant. We stay with what's there. So we're maintaining, the guidelines are pretty particular. The bushes around the property are supposed to be overgrown. The Trumans needed those for privacy when they came back from the White House. Some of the bushes in front are supposed to be the height of the railing. So we have some different rules than we might practice in our own yards. We have a really good group of volunteers. We're always anxious to have more. And I did communicate with the National Park Service. They said that we could have volunteers come to try out the site one time without having to fill out the background check information that we all have to do to be volunteers there. First time we meet will be in March, weather providing. After this last week, I'm not making any guarantees. I feel like it's a really great partnership between gardening and history, and we'd certainly love to have people join us in that.
Martha Lafite Thompson Nature Sanctuary in Liberty is managed for wildlife. The nature sanctuary itself is over 100 acres of land. It's managed for the diversity of plants and wildlife. We maintain 2 areas near the visitor center, which was closed all of last year, the visitor center, not our areas. and the visitor center was closed, but the trails to the nature sanctuary were open. This is the one nearest the visitor center. It's a registered monarch garden. And then we have another one it's called Bird Island. It's actually a parking lot island, not an island in a lake that's near there that we also maintain. It's 90% native perennials. We do plant some annuals right there in the parking lot just to make it pretty when people drive up. We're going to change those this year to perennials because it was just too hard to keep them watered last year. The thing about Martha Lafite is you learn something new every time you go. We work a lot with the director, Michael Sandy, and his wife, Durania. They'll come out and work with us and answer our questions. We've gone on nature hikes on the trails with Durania, and there's something different blooming every time you work there. The first thing that will bloom in this garden is the golden currant, which if you've never seen a golden currant or smelled one, oh my gosh, they smell heavenly. And the purple poppy mallow, the wild iris will be blooming here in just a few weeks. It's hard to even imagine, but then the fringe tree and buckeye will be in bloom. Every time you go, it's something different. That's what's really fun about it. Mainly we maintain, all of the natives, because they love the area, will run rampant over each other. So what we try to do is tame them. We spend a lot of time taming even the purple coneflower, the goldenrod, the monarda, so that it doesn't overrun each other. And people can enjoy, the diversity of the plants that are in those gardens. We meet on the second and fourth Saturday of every month, usually 9 to 11, though people are really free to come whenever they want once they know what we do. And we'll have a work day here soon whenever the weather permits us. We don't deadhead. We never deadhead. Michael likes us to leave everything for the wildlife. We don't clean the gardens up in the fall. So here, as soon as we can get in the gardens now in the spring, we'll be cleaning all of the dead plants out, getting ready for them to come back up when the sun shines and the weather warms up.
Project Living Proof is located just north of the Anita Gorman Discovery Center on Emmanuel Cleaver Drive. And if you've ever noticed on Emmanuel Cleaver, those unusual homes that all look alike with the stone fronts, those are called the Printer Rose homes. And they're actually on the National Historic Registry. And the home that we are taking care of the grounds of is owned by the Metropolitan Energy Commission. And their goal is to provide homeowners with an information and resource center to make their home more sustainable and cost effective, both inside and out. And that's where we come into the picture, is on the outside of the home. We have the goal of creating a space that maximizes the use of the grounds surrounding it to not only provide food for the family, but also to support native pollinators and insects in the garden. We have 250 square feet of raised beds. And in 2021, we are going to have our first year as a community garden partner with Kansas City Community Gardens. We've already developed our 3-season gardening plan with them, and we will be taking our produce to one of the neighborhood food pantries for distribution. We also have fruit trees and are partnered with Kansas City Community Gardens as a member of the Giving Grove. We have an espalier pear. So if you're interested in espalier fruits growing, you can learn a little bit about it. I certainly am myself this year. And we have a peach tree. We have 3 jujubes, 2 cherry bushes, and 2 kiwi vines. The remaining landscape around the home is native plants, shrubs, and grasses. And I would say 95% of the plants around the home are natives. We do fill in with some annuals like zinnias, because the insects love those, the butterflies love those, and they provide a lot of color. One of our biggest projects this coming year is going to be redesigning the use of native plants on the front of the home. It's a beautiful home. If you've seen those homes, they're very unique. And we want to show the neighborhoods around there how you can incorporate native plants into a home landscape and have it to be aesthetically pleasing and to provide interest throughout the year, not only spring, summer, and fall, but also in the winter. We have so many native plants right now, but we're going to be doing a lot of musical chairs with our plants this year and bringing in some new plants, but just redesigning that with the idea of improving the curb appeal of the property and draw people into the garden. Another thing that we're thinking about doing this year is using social media more to draw people from the area into the garden. When we're working there, we work on Sunday mornings. We often have people drop by the garden. There's a lot of people that jog in that area because of the Swope Park Creek area down there. So they'll come jogging through the side of our property that we work and ask questions and stuff. So we want to draw people into the garden more, and we're thinking about hosting some garden tours, like maybe in the springtime, talking to people about 3-season gardening, and then do a second one on native plants, and then talking about fall interest in the garden and things like that. So just some topics that we might, using social media, reach out to the community surrounding us to draw them into the area and get them interested in gardening more. We have a core group of about 6 or 8 people that come on a regular basis to work in the garden on Sunday mornings for about 2 hours. And but we're always looking for more people. The people that we have, we've got a diverse group, and everybody's eager to learn and open to learning and sharing with each other. So I joined it in 2019, and I've developed some great relationships with the people that are in the garden, and just enjoy the time that we get to spend together each week.
The Atkins-Johnson farm, it is a heritage garden. This is a, if you've been in the Gladstone area, this is a 40-acre farmstead that is on the historical registry. The garden itself is a country garden. It is a very large garden, 60 foot by 60 foot. And they also have raised beds as well with strawberry and asparagus and that, plus an additional very large pumpkin patch. They donated over 1,800 pounds of food this year to local food pantries. But the other thing too is, because it's on the Atkins-Johnson farm site, there are children's programs that are hosted. And Frank is always very good at saving the carrots and radishes and tomatoes and that for the children. They come in on scavenger hunts and they have to pick the vegetables. And they're always very astonished to see these vegetables growing. They work on Wednesday and Saturday mornings. It's a period correct garden. Everything has to be as it was back in the 1800s. So Frank actually grows a lot of the seeds because you cannot buy these plants anymore.
Okay, John Wornall House.
Elaine. I'm co-coordinator with Susan Lynn at the John Wornall House Museum Garden. And I started working there in 2016 when I was an intern with the Master Gardeners. And at that point, the Master Gardeners were only taking care of the herb garden. And the following year, well, they also were taking care of a butterfly, a semi-butterfly garden. The Master Gardeners also took on that native shade garden. So it's probably, I don't know, it's over 100 feet, I know, by 6 feet. So it's a pretty good sized shade garden. And last year in the winter, Wornall was able to get a grant to do dramatic renovations to the landscape. So they added a lot of hardscape, stone walls. They created an outdoor education center for kids. They increased curb appeal of the entryways into the land. And they also added interpretive signs. And there's a whole series of interpretive signs along the paths throughout the garden. And that really has increased the foot traffic. We noticed last year as we were working, many more people walking through the garden, reading the interpretive signs, learning about what life was like in the 1850s and 60s and the history of the Wornall house. So that's a nice opportunity for the master gardeners to interact with the public more. So we really enjoyed that. But in addition, it also increased the size of planting beds that we had. We had not planted around the house, and we now have planting beds on every side of the house. So and also by the signs out by the road. So it's really increased the size that of the planting areas that we're now responsible for. We were very honored to work with the executive director of the museum, Carrie Nichols, to design those new planting beds around the house. And we also we were able to oversee the planting of those beds last fall. So we're all very anxiously awaiting spring to see how all our new plantings survive this cold winter. We have about over 75 different species of native plants on the property. And in the herb, last year we switched from strictly an herb garden to more of a country or a kitchen garden. So it was a combination of tomatoes and cucumbers and squash and different vegetables along with the herbs. And we'll continue that this year. But the herbs, it's both medicinal and culinary. There's a nice variety in the herb garden. But with the addition of the new planting areas, we've nearly doubled the area that we're now responsible for. And we had a great volunteer involvement last year, but with this doubling of the area, we're going to need even more help this year. So we would welcome anyone who would like to come join us on Wednesday and Saturday mornings. Typically, we have a Wednesday crew and we have a Saturday crew, and we work from 9 to 11. So you're always welcome to come join us.
Well, I'm the coordinator at Watkins Mill Heirloom Kitchen Garden, and I have 4 co-coordinators who help take care of things with me. That's Marty Williams, Irene Jeffries, and Bob and Barb Eyrick. The garden there began with the Master Gardener Partnership in 2004. So we have been there for 17 years, and I think we were the first Master Gardener garden. And I started in 2009, so I've been there for 12 years. It partners with the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, which runs the Missouri State Park System, and also the Watkins Mill Association, who preserve and promote the historic site. The garden is located within the historic site of the surrounding 1,500-acre park. It's located 30 minutes north of Liberty off 92 Highway, and that is east of Kearney, Missouri. The historic site is one of 5 national landmarks, and the Woolen and Grist Mill is the National Mechanical Engineering Landmark. The historic site includes the Watkins home, a barn, the smokehouse, the kitchen, the fruit drying house, and the heirloom kitchen turkey coops, as well as the heirloom kitchen garden. We work on Tuesday mornings from 9 to 11 until the weather warms, and then we work from 8 to 10, and we start in mid-March and run until the first part of October. In addition to the garden, we also take care of the Visitor Center entrance monument, which is about 3 years ago was registered as a Monarch Way station. This year, we're going to have an unusual year as we have 2 big events. Usually we have an annual event that's either in the spring or in the fall, but this year we will have both. The last week in April, there will be a Missouri Bicentennial event that's called Sheep to Shawl, where woolen artisans will be demonstrating the carding and spinning and knitting and weaving of the wool and then selling their wares. And in addition, we will be showing off our newly renovated garden. If you can see in this picture, you just see posts and no fencing. And the fencing has been removed with the post still there, but the whole thing is going to get a revamp at the great expense. It's hand-hewn oak and square nails and a lot of labor to put that all back together. But it's been there for 30 years now. Before we came, it was installed, and so it's needs to be replaced. We're getting new grape arbors, repaired raised beds, edgings, gate, and fencing. And we will need lots of help in the short amount of time before the sheep to shawl event begins and the time that they can finish with the gardening. It'll be about 3 weeks for us to prepare for this first event. So we're hoping that the weather will cooperate. Usually the first Saturday in October is when we have our Fall on the Farm event. And that is where rural life in the 1870s is displayed with all kinds of artisans, and like there's lace making, spinning, rope making, blacksmithing, children's games, sheep shearing, corn hucking, all kinds of stuff. And we host a children's activity table with garden related theme and give tours of the garden. And we host a children's scavenger hunt and then man the apple drying house and slice the apples for the display. This is a day-long volunteer opportunity where you can get 6 hours of public outreach in one day. So that's, if you're interested in getting your hours in the fall, we're the place to come. We practice organic gardening and grow vegetables, fruits, flowers, and herbs, varieties of the 1870s and older. It's a 100 by 100 garden, or 10,000 square feet. We are a laid back group that enjoys each other's company, and we chit chat about gardening and the new best books and, webinars and that kind of thing to see. And we'd love to have you come join us. We have a lot of fun out there. We particularly enjoy the chickens that are alongside, and they're always cackling, and if somebody sneezes, they repeat. If you are interested in finding out more about Watkins or when we're going to start or what chores we need help with, I will add you then to that email list.
Sarah asked if you have to wear period costumes.
Oh, no, we wear, in order to work out there, we just wear whatever you would normally wear in the garden. Initially, we were wearing our period costumes, or the period costumes that the state provides, but they had so many volunteers and the costumes were getting older and older, and it was a lot of wear and tear in the garden on those costumes. So they told us, since you have a sort of uniform, with our shirts, our hibiscus shirts, that we are allowed to wear those on the day that we have an event. And other than that, we just wear whatever the heck we want to wear, because we're there in the early morning, really before tours begin. The tours start at 10, and by the time they get around to the garden, we're pretty much almost gone. We do get people that come throughout the day and visit, and so we welcome into the garden, and we talk gardening and answer and ask questions. And we have kind of a lot of strange varieties of things out there that they want to know what it is. Like everybody always asks, what's the horseradish and what's the broom corn? They've never seen it before. So it's a unique garden, and it's a quiet place to work. You really are back in time when you're out there. You hear an occasional plane go over, but that's about it. Just us and the chickens.
To wrap this up, just wanted to remind everyone that if you're looking at volunteering at a community garden project, what you should ideally do is go out to the website, not just ideally, this is what we would like for you to do. Go out to the website, the members only section under volunteer information, and click on community projects. And what you're going to see is all of the different community projects listed. And for each community project, the address is there. The coordinator contact information, phone number and email is there, their work days, and a project plan. We then would like for you to review the garden project plan. That'll give you a pretty good idea of what the garden is all about. Contact the garden coordinator and let the garden coordinator know what your interest is. Are you truly wanting to volunteer? Are you part of the 12 and 12? Just what is your expectation? And then one of the new things is if you truly want to volunteer there and you're wanting someone to work with, you can request a project coach. And when I think of a project coach, it's almost a buddy, someone that you know is always going to be there that you can work with when you're there at the garden. So that's just the basic scenario of how we would like for you to, what we would like for you to do when you want to volunteer at the garden.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate y'all joining.
Thanks to all of the garden coordinators who made a point of coming into the mingle. Very good.
Yes.
You're welcome.
And Debbie, thanks so much for putting it together. Thank
Yeah,
you,
thanks,
everyone.
Debbie.